My name is Laura Tebbutt. I am from the East Midlands, which is where I am about to start the play Punch. In terms of my career up until this, it's been all musical theatre. I actually went to Leeds University and then I went to the Royal Academy of Music. And then from then, I've done a sort of number of musicals over the years, from Les Mis to Wizard of Oz to Into the Woods, School of Rock, Mrs. Doubtfire. And this is my first play, Punch.
And then Punch, obviously playing two roles, Jacob's mum and Wendy. What can you
Yeah,
tell me about the roles and the play on the whole, please?
goodness. Okay, so the play is about a lad called Jacob Dunne, who is from the Meadows in Nottingham. And on one night out in 2011, he threw a punch that ended up killing a man called James Hodgkinson. So Jacob then went to prison for 13 months, served a sentence there. And the parents of James, the boy who died, they felt like they didn't have the answers that they needed. And they felt like the only person that they could ask was actually Jacob, the perpetrator. So through a service called Restorative Justice, the parents of the boy that died got in contact with Jacob and they started up a not relationship, but they started talking to each other. They started writing to each other over a number of years. And basically, up until this day, they still campaign together to get restorative justice given to all the victims that are, that go through crime. And that's what the play's about. So I play Wendy, who is Jacob's probation officer. So basically, the person that looks after him when he comes out of jail. And she is a little bit apprehensive about this idea of restorative justice because she doesn't think maybe he's in the right headspace for it. But she ends up going along with it. And then I also play Jacob's mum. So she is a really wonderful character. So she has two sons, Jacob and Sam, and she's a childminder. And she's sort of a really lovely character that then ends up having quite a sad sort of story because she ends up becoming an alcoholic and it's about her kind of journey and how she deals with her son going from being, just a kind of a I don't know, a happy young boy and then starting to get into trouble at school and then eventually ending up, committing this crime and going to prison.
And as you say, it's your first play. What kind of attracted you to this to be that first play?
I mean, I don't think I could have dreamed that this would have been my first play in the sense of it's set in Nottingham. So wonderful. I mean, I'm here in Nottingham now. We moved here yesterday. We've got 2 more weeks of rehearsals. My sister lives here. I'm in her house now. So I'm lucky that I can stay in digs locally. And my brother lives here. So the fact that it's set in Nottingham is amazing. The fact that it's about Nottingham is wonderful. And the fact that it's by James Graham, who is obviously sort of, one of the most well-known prolific writers of modern day, who is also from Nottingham, it couldn't be better. I saw the play in November when I got my audition through, and I just thought it was absolutely wonderful. I really couldn't have sort of hoped to have had a better introduction to being in a play than this. There's only 6 of us in it, so that's really nice. A small cast. I'm kind of used to being in much bigger casts in musical theatre. So yeah, it's kind of been the perfect thing for me to be a part of, and the story is just wonderful. And there's so much that you can research. There's so much to listen to, podcasts and books and things like that. And that's obviously something that is, well, certainly rare in musical theatre. You can kind of, sing the score, watch the film, whatever. But with this, there's so much to look at, so much to read, and it's still ongoing. So the whole process has been just really, really interesting, really, really wonderful.
Yeah, it's a good question, kind of to lead on to kind of the difference, I suppose, of playing people who are real life people who are out in the world, like you say, you can research as opposed to a fictional character you've just got to imagine. What's that like for you?
I mean, scary in a way, because you are portraying somebody who exists. So, the good thing about this play is that all the people in the story are still involved. All the people have given their blessing. So James's parents, David and Joan, Jacob obviously is involved, Wendy, Nicola, all these characters, they're all aware of the play. They've all been to see it. They've all had an input, So that can be quite scary. So in the second day of rehearsals, we FaceTimed David and Joan. That was strange because you sort of know them as characters as opposed to people. And the same with Jacob, he's kind of feels like a bit of a celebrity in a way, because I've heard so much about him and I've seen, I've listened to all his podcasts and stuff. So the fact that he is real and you can ask him questions is quite crazy. Obviously in musical theatre, you can only watch Mrs. Doubtfire so many times, So it's a very different thing. But it's amazing to be able to speak to the real life people. Like what a treat, what an honor to be able to ask them questions about the people that you're playing.
And then what's it like when you are stepping into a creative process of a play that's already been successful, had runs kind of London, Broadway? What's it like when you're stepping into a new cast of that production?
I mean, the good thing about this is that all the cast are new.
Yeah.
So, obviously in musical theatre, I've been in the first cast for stuff. I've been in takeover cast for stuff. So I'm very aware of how it sort of works. And the good thing about Punch has been that all the creatives, all the team are the ones that already existed. So they know everything. So, all the wardrobe department, they already know your quick changes, all of those things. That's what you need. To basically learn our lines and learn the show. There's a pressure in a way because the show is so successful that you want to be able to live up to the standard of it. But actually, as long as you're sort of doing justice to the play, then hopefully it will receive a similar sort of reaction from the audience. As long as you're saying the lines, as long as you're being kind of truthful to it all and you've put the work in, you would hope that it would be equally as successful. But there is a bit of a pressure that that it stays successful, that people still review it and regard it highly. But the most important thing is that everybody who's involved backstage knows what they're doing. So that helps us, no end going into a new rehearsal process.
And obviously, you touched on the kind of topics and things that are in the play. How important is it that you're in a play that has had such a societal change as well? Like, the topics and discussions from the play have gone kind of beyond the stage.
Oh, I mean, it's amazing. Like, that theatre can change lives. That anyway. Do you know what I mean? No matter what it is, it can touch different people in different ways. But when it's actually when it's actually helping make change, that's when it's really special. That's when you see the art form at its best. Do you know what I mean? That's when you realize what it can actually do. And there is going to be a school's like a shortened, an hour-long version of it that will be going around schools. And that's what I thought when I watched it in the West End. It's that thing where you're like, if I saw this, or if kids saw this growing up, it really is, helping. It really is shaping people. And it's also showing that the arts can be educational. The arts can change things. It's been really inspiring to see it sort of what it's managed to do and how it affects people and how it changes people.
And then for you, I know you've not quite started the run yet, but how do you mentally and physically kind of prepare and get into the headspace for a performance?
That is an interesting question because, like you say, we haven't started the run yet. And for me, obviously, with it being my first play, it is a very different thing to preparing for a musical. Even in terms of just not needing to warm up your singing voice.
Yeah.
Not needing to do a full sort of vocal warm up in that sense. The physicality of it's as physical as a musical, although there's not dance numbers in it, obviously, but it is choreographed. Like Leanne Pinder, has done like some amazing sort of movement and choreography and stuff. And so it is still physical. So there is that element of it. I mean, it will be interesting to see. We're still in the process of sort of putting it on its feet. So we've not even done a full run of it yet. So it will be interesting to see how we pace ourselves throughout the show. You know, there's not many gaps for us. I mean, particularly not for the lead, for Jack. He's on the whole time. Like when you'll see it, you will be sort of mesmerized by the amount of lines that he's
Yeah.
had to learn. He's never off stage. So I think it will be about pacing ourselves and seeing if we, you know, if and where we have little breaks and stuff. But because it's an ensemble piece, we're just always on stage. And then in terms of, you know, sort of mentally preparing for it, I guess the show starts relatively sort of upbeat and then it goes pretty dark, and then it sort of makes its way back to being quite positive at the end. So I'm hoping that by the time we bow, we're feeling okay. But who knows what we'll have gone through during the process of it.
And again, similar sort of question, but then how do you kind of, obviously, again, you've not opened this play, but how do you generally unwind after a performance?
Uh, so normally, well, when I was working in London, my commute is an hour and a half. So I would unwind by sitting on the train and watching Netflix.
Yeah.
But in Nottingham, I don't know. It's a case of there'll be lots of people coming that I know because I'm in the Midlands, obviously. So quite a few shows, there'll be people here that I'll be able to see and say hi to. And so it'll be that, you know, go for a drink and then sort of make my way back home. But sort of TBC on that, really, because I don't know how I'm going to feel after it. So yeah, it will be interesting to know.
And this question you may have kind of already touched on as well. Like, if you were able to ask the kind of people you are playing a question, what question would you ask about their lives?
That's amazing. That's such a good question. So Wendy, I would sort of ask her, obviously she's the probation officer, so I would ask her about her other success stories, I think. I'd also ask her about how the system's changed over the years, how she feels like, you know, whether she's whether she feels like restorative justice can help all sort of perpetrators and victims. I don't know. There's so much I want to ask her. I've not actually met her, so that is something I would ask. Jacob's mum passed away a few years ago, so I wouldn't be able to ask her questions. But I mean, there's plenty of questions I'd want to ask her as well. She sounds like she was an absolute legend. So yeah, that's a shame. It would have been nice to meet her, but obviously her sort of legacy lives on in this play and in the way that Jacob, you know, talks about her.
I've got three questions for you, just about kind of generally kind of you. Simply,
Okay.
how do you reflect on your career to this point? Like you say, you've done quite a lot of musicals, but how do you kind of reflect on the journey to this point?
Gosh, goodness. I mean, I don't think I could have ever dreamed of all the stuff that I've done over my career. I think you always sort of compare yourself to other people in this business. Um, but I think I wouldn't make any changes to the place that I am now. You know, even in terms of the friends I've made, you know, meeting my partner on a job, all of those things. I think where else would I want to be than where I am right now? You know, doing this amazing play in my home county, essentially. So yeah, I feel very lucky. I can't believe I'm still doing it.
Yeah.
I can't believe I'm still paying my mortgage from acting and singing. That is, but then when I was growing up, I never thought I wouldn't. You just think, oh yeah, it'll be fine. People make careers out of it. But actually it's been a real slog. Um, it's a lot harder than I think I ever imagined in terms of particularly the sort of sacrifices that you have to make with, you know, not going to people's weddings and funerals and birthdays and holidays and all of those kind of things. But I don't regret any choices that I've made. And I also am really grateful and proud of the things that I have actually achieved, all things that I sort of set out to do when I was doing Amdram in Melton Mowbray.
Yes. And then scrolling back the years, what was the first piece of theatre you remember having that big impact that made you think, that's for me?
It's a good question. I mean, I always used to watch, so my mum and dad were in the Amdram. So I remember seeing them in shows and thinking, that's for me. Although I didn't know it could be a job because they both had jobs that weren't performing. I remember going to see, I mean, this was when I was a bit older, but my brother George, he was in Chitty Chitty Bang Bang as one of the kids at the London Palladium. And I remember thinking, now it feels a lot closer to home, the fact that my brother's in a West End show. But then I thought, this is going to happen. I've never sort of not thought it was going to happen. I just didn't know how I was going to get there, but I just sort of did what I loved, as hobbies and saw as much as I could. And that's where my path sort of led. I actually did music at Leeds, but I knew after that I wanted to do musical theatre specifically. So yeah, I think it was watching the Amdram. So not even any professional shows, just my mum and dad in the Amdram. And then my brother in Chitty at the Palladium.
And then what keeps you inspired to keep telling stories?
I mean, it's seeing plays like Punch. Obviously, I see a lot of musical theatre, and I love musical theatre, like it is my sort of first love. But something like Punch just feels different. It just feels relevant. And like I said, like it's making a real cultural change. Like it's making people have conversations. And that's not to say that musical theatre doesn't do that. It does. But I feel like this play in particular has really opened my eyes to what it is that theatre can actually achieve. And some theatre is just for escapism. And I love that, I love that as well. Everything's so different, isn't it? People can say they don't like musicals, but you think that's an entire genre you're just saying you don't like.
Yeah.
Whereas, you go and see Mrs. Doubtfire compared to like Amelie, like you've got the poster there, like one of my favourite musicals I've ever seen. You just, from Les Mis to, Into the Woods, they're just all completely different. They all do a completely different thing and they're all for a completely different audience. I think there's something for everyone. So yeah, I say stay inspired by seeing as much as I can.
Yes. And then to wrap it all up, this conversation, simply what would you hope an audience member takes away from seeing Punch?
Until my audition come in and I managed to get a ticket last minute at the Apollo in the West End. And obviously it's raising awareness of One Punch and what that, and the amount of lives it can take in a year. But it's actually the kindness and the forgiveness of the parents of James that was the thing that I took away from it. There's something so moving about people being kind. Like it's, especially at the moment, especially today, with everything that's going on, just it's a real human story of people forgiving. And you just think if David and Joan can forgive Jacob, as Joan has, what does that mean for everyone else? Who could we forgive? What could we sort of let go of for our own happiness and to move forward? I just found that to be very, very moving and very inspiring. In fact, the character of Joan, you almost don't believe she's a real person because she's just so unbelievably kind. So the fact that she is based on a real person and that real person is that kind is really, really wonderful. And that was the thing that I took away from seeing Punch. So I hope that people take that away.
Well, Laura, thank you so much for your time this morning. It's a pleasure to talk to you. Let me say that Punch is running from 13th March till 4th April in Nottingham, Leeds Playhouse 7th to 11th April, and Fit All Plymouth 14th to the 18th of April.